Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's Construction Excellence Surrey Club. My name is Craig Goddard. Thank you all for joining us today. Firstly, I'd like to introduce you to myself and to Sarah. We're going to do a minute to explain who we are as the new co-chairs of Construction Excellence. And then we're going to take you through a fantastic set of speakers that are going to talk us through some of the work that's been done in Surrey at the moment, in particularly the award-winning work and why we should be driving for those awards. So, Sarah, could I just ask you to introduce yourself and explain where you come from?
So good morning, everybody. My name is Sarah Evans. My day job is as a construction partner at Spencer West, and I advise all supply chain members on the legal aspects of their opportunities and challenges. I'm delighted to now be a co-chair of Constructing Excellence Surrey Club with Craig Goddard of Scott Brownrigg. The club has come an awful long way since its first inception in 2018, and its mission remains to share best practice, innovation, and to drive change. So we are caretakers of the club for everyone, but our doors are always open, and I'd welcome any of you who want to get involved with future events to drop me a line, to drop Craig a line, or contact any other member of the committee, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So we're both very excited to take on this role. We are very conscious we have some very big shoes to fill in that of the departing co-chairs of Will Burkett of F&G and Rosie Andrews of Wilmot Dixon. We'd like to extend tremendous thanks to them for their time and effort they've put in over the last couple of years, and hopefully we can carry forward the torch in a manner that's fitting. Also, like to say thank you to Menzies, who've been standing on the committee for the last couple of years, that have stepped down this year, but are still going to be active members of the group. So, as Sarah touched on, my name is Craig Goddard. I'm a project director at Scott Brownrigg Architects. We're based in Surrey with offices across the rest of the UK. Our Surrey office particularly are looking at commercial, residential and defence projects in the sort of the regional areas of the south. We are presenting today through one of our projects that is currently shortlisted. So with no further ado, we'd like to move on and start chatting to you about the actual event. So today we have three speakers. We're going to say focused on awards and on the work that's been done locally. We're going to be first going to introduce Derek Rees, who will be come from from SECB. He's going to talk to us today about their upcoming summit and award ceremony, which is next week. We'll be followed up by Simon Pilbeam from Pilbeam Construction, who will talk through their award-winning scheme at Bravetie Manor. And finally, Ed Hayden from Scott Brown will be talking to us about the Cabby development that is currently shortlisted for one of the awards. So we feel it's a really important time for us to be talking about this, engaging as we really embrace and encourage quality architecture and development going forward. So on that time, I'd like to hand over to Derek. If you could, thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoy this speech.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning. So I'm Derek Rees. I'm Chief Executive of SECB South East Centre Built Environment, Region Director for Constructing Excellence for London South East and whatever else I do. So it's brilliant to be here to be part of this event. It's probably worth just for those who are less familiar with SECB than they are of Constructing Excellence. My own personal background used to be a construction manager. I was involved with Latham and Egan back with the dinosaurs in the 90s. So I've been part of Constructing Excellence forever and the change agenda within our sector. Hugely passionate about what we achieve and still our potential to be even better than we are and inspire every other sector. So SECB, we're the regional partner for Constructing Excellence for London South East. We were proud to be one of the founding partners in setting up Constructing Excellence Surrey 3 years ago, is it? It's got to be about that sort of time, somewhere around there. And it continues to go from strength to strength. And our mission, same as the Constructing Excellence, is about driving positive change through the sector our core values about inspiration, innovation, and collaboration, about seeing better ways of doing things through collaboration, that we can achieve much better results. Whatever it was Einstein said, if you keep doing the same thing, don't be surprised if you get the same result. So if we want better results and we have huge challenges ahead of us, then we absolutely need to be constantly looking for better ways of doing things and then implementing. And the Constructing Excellence SecB Awards are absolutely central to that that mission. The first of our core values is the challenges of working at home with dogs. So is the awards are there to recognise the best and inspire the rest. So that's very much playing to the inspiration bit. It's the awards are all about recognizing behaviors. They absolutely do recognize some brilliant projects, and we've got those with Simon and Ed can describe those. But it's as much about driving the right, recognizing the right behaviors that drive ethical, responsible, and sustainable performance improvements. And as I say, it's about the way the awards work is identifying and then selecting the best examples of, I think there are 14 different categories. And the process works that people, they do the written submission, same as many other awards. And we have then a really rigorous panel interview. So anyone like Pilbeam who won, and Ed, Scott Brownrigg for Cabby, don't know yet whether he won or not. That's going to be announced on 1st July. But it's a really rigorous process, so that when people are recognised for excellence, that's well won. We said it's about recognise the best to inspire the rest. Lots of awards recognise. What we use these awards for is to give that inspiration to companies to then say, that's brilliant. Now I want to understand what they did, and that's where Constructing Excellence is absolutely. It's about sharing that best practice, Craig, as you said. It's then sharing it in a way that people can go, that's brilliant. How do I then apply that to my business, to my project, to my organization? And it's about giving everyone the confidence to see that it has been done, that it has been successful, that it really made a difference, and then giving that confidence to then implement that in their own organization. And over the years, I can't remember how long we've been running the Constructing Excellence SecB Awards, something like 9-10 years. And there's buckets of brilliant examples. And obviously the world moves on all the time. But there's loads of, there are 14 categories. Even if just the winner was presenting at each of the Constructing Excellence Club events, that's a year's program in itself. And companies should be using the content from there to inform and inspire their own work. Certainly, whenever I'm involved in the shortlisting, I'm part of the team that do the shortlisting every year. And as I'm going through the 100 and something entries that we get, 150 or thereabouts, and I'm reading through those, particularly organization entries around, say, the SME or people development, I look at that going, that's a brilliant example. We should be doing that in our own organization. So I'd absolutely urge everyone to look at the brochures that used to be produced. It was a one-page on each one that said, this is the challenge, these are the actions, and these are the results we got, and lessons for others. So look back at those brochures on the SecB Awards or CE Awards website, look at the videos, look at the blogs, and get that inspiration. But that's where Craig mentioned at the beginning, we've got this Leaders Summit on the 1st of July, and on the 1st of July is also where the winners will be announced. So good luck to Scott Brownrigg and all the others, but that's where the winners will be announced. But to help drive awareness and then implementation of the brilliant stuff that the finalists and winners have been doing on their projects or their organizations, we've got this Leaders Summit, and I'll just pop a link into the chat if I can get it to work for that summit. The information is all there. I don't know if it's going to work. Yeah, it should have gone now. That the summit, it's 10 different sessions. Each of them are only 45 minutes, 10 different themes, and you can register, you can click on that link, see what the themes are, but it's the sponsors, it's the finalists for each of those categories providing thought leadership on those issues. Yes, of course, they'll be sharing and promoting what they did, but it's beyond that. It's the real thought leadership that organisations involved in the CE Surrey Club and beyond have to really help drive things forward. So please register to that. But arguably more importantly, urge your clients, your competitors, and your colleagues to get there. The more people that see the inspiration, the quicker the sector will move forward. And then, as I mentioned, that at the end of that 1st of July, there's the awards ceremony. It's I think it's a 45-minute or an hour piece to really give the spotlight for the finalists and for the winners. And that's at something like 5:30. So I'll drop a link in to the chat in a second. But what we'll hear from Simon in a moment, and then from Ed, are great examples of what really good organisations have been doing, what they've achieved, the difference they've made, and then really seeking to inspire everybody else who's on this and who will be watching the video afterwards to really take positive action. So I hope that's a helpful overview of why these awards and the shortlisted and finalists typify what constructive excellence is about. It's trying things, achieving great results, and then telling everyone else about it, moving the whole industry forward together.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek, for that. Really informative. Forgot to mention at the beginning, we will run a little Q&A session at the end of all 3 speeches. So if you do have any questions related to anything Derek's just mentioned, please feel free to drop them in the chat or drop a message to one of us, and we'll try and wrap all those questions up in a little open discussion towards the end. Okay, and on that opportunity, I would like to hand over to Simon to introduce his fantastic project, the Grave Tie Manor. Yeah, over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Craig. So, good morning. My name is Simon Pilbeam. I'm the MD of Pilbeam Construction, Brighton-based general contractor who we work across Sussex, into Surrey and surrounding counties. What I'm going to do is to endeavour to share a PowerPoint with you. So if you can just bear with me one moment, and hopefully we'll get this on the road. I think that's one we want. So hopefully you can all see our front sheet of PowerPoint there. So we were the contractor on the build of a new restaurant at Grave Tie Manor in West Hobury, West Sussex. That was selected as the SECB Constructing Excellence Project of the Year 2019 for projects under 10 million. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through the presentation made to the judges panel in London in the final phase of the awards process. And this hopefully this will provide a flavour of the complexities of the project, and hopefully show you why we're so proud of the scheme and why we entered it into the awards. So there you can see just a general picture of the completed project from the inside. And hopefully we are going to move on to the next slide. So the project brief is detailed there. And the challenge here was to design and build a £3.3 million basement and 60 cover restaurant to a grade 1 listed 5-star boutique hotel in a design period of 8 months and a build period of 18 weeks. So a very fast program. The concept was to create a glass-walled restaurant with a floating roof over the with a floating roof over the restaurant area without compromising the building's heritage, and to produce a feeling of dining directly within the grade 2 listed gardens. The project also included excavating and constructing a basement, as previously mentioned, beneath the restaurant. That incorporated a new plant room, some offices and other facilities, also including refurbishing the existing commercial kitchen and the installation of a new substation. So, how do we get from that photo on the left to the picture on the right-hand side? So, what were the challenges? So it was a very high-risk project with multiple challenges. They included issues such as the site logistics, the main issues being the site logistics, the very tight program, keeping the build to some sort of budget, and the buildability of the scheme, bearing in mind the factors above. As you can see from this photo, the project, the site is in that courtyard at the rear, and so it's totally landlocked by the building and the gardens. So the site logistics were a major issue due to that grade 1 listed building, the grade 2-star gardens entirely surrounding the works. And as you saw from the previous photo, the area at the time, that courtyard area was a bit of no man's land in some ways. So it was very difficult to get to, and how that was to be done was a big question. So both time and access constraints compounded the challenges that we had there, and considerations were given to access through the gardens. That would have caused immense damage to the property, to the environment, would have taken a great deal of time, putting temporary roads in, etc., and then removing them and reinstating them. So how was it to be done? We went with a situation of craning the all materials and plant into that courtyard. So heavy machinery, meters and meters of excavated spoil, large precast concrete units, steel, glass, and all the other projects had to be moved on site safely without accident or damage to personal property, and whilst creating the lowest environmental impact. So as I've just mentioned, we went with the route of using craneage to access the area. But of course, we weren't able to, due to insurance reasons at least, weren't able to carry anything over the building. Everything had to be swung around the building and then brought into that courtyard area. So the solution there was to bring in a 350-ton crane and swing everything around the whole property. And getting the crane onto site was a feat in itself due to the very, very narrow lanes around the building, around the property, accessing it. So once we had, sorry, that calm down a bit. So once we'd received a letter of intent, we had just 8 months prior to the proposed start date, which was 3rd of January in 2018, to design the building. In fact, we received a letter of intent in February of 2017, and planning permission and listed building consent didn't get approved until the following month. And at that time, we just started working with the architect and the design team to design out the building and the problems with integrating all the different trades, all the products, and the general buildability and all the site logistics. So when we received the letter of intent, there was pretty much very little understanding of how the project was to be delivered. Ground investigations, building surveys and the like all remained to be undertaken. And it soon became apparent that the enabling package was required to be carried out early to allow the works to be carried out during the short programme and de-risk that programme and hopefully ensure that the works were completed in that time. So start date was, say, 3rd January, with a completion on around about May 10th later that year. It was very compact, and any problems therein were going to impact that. The hotel was very reluctant to allow us to do any work during normal hours, and for the enabling works, at least, we were given 2 slots each day of 2 hours each in which to carry out the works, and that worked around their use of the restaurant from breakfast, end of breakfast and before lunch, and directly after lunch before dinner. But they wouldn't throw anybody out the restaurant. They'd wait until they left, and you couldn't start work until the clients had left. So a pre-construction program was created. We had target completion dates for all major design aspects and order dates for materials and manufacture periods and the like. And that was critical in ensuring that pre-construction activities were developed to a time frame and had deadlines which were and could be achieved. So how did we do that? We did that by early appointment of ourselves, the contractor, the subcontractors and suppliers, which allowed their engagement and collaboration in the whole design and logistical process, ensuring that that design was complied with within the or brought forward within the program allowed. That collaboration also ensured that there was full coordination of products and subcontractors engaging with ourselves, the designers, and other subcontractors to ensure that products all fitted together, and that once they were brought onto site, they would hopefully fit together fairly readily. So construction program, as mentioned earlier, is 18-week build program, and we had 7-day-a-week working and weekly design team meetings. So it was apparent partway through the design process that we could never complete this project in the time allowed without 7-day working. The client would only allow the hotel to be closed from January through to May. Completion date was non-negotiable, and indeed they had a countdown clock on their website saying how many days, hours and minutes it was until the hotel reopened. So there was no pressure, not much. Development of the program throughout the design process gave the construction team time to consider the methodology, logistics, the safety, and as previously mentioned, how everything slotted together. So back to that early engagement, early collaboration really enabled the whole project to work. Without that, it would have been much slower, much more difficult and more complicated. And throughout the construction process, there were weekly meetings held with the design team, with the subcontractors, and indeed the architect was on site regularly, at least 4 times a week, possibly more. So this was all brought, allowed to progress in this way, largely by the client who was very realistic. They allocated a realistic budget for design process and for the construction works, and they took a pragmatic and inclusive view to cost requirements and understood the actions needed to progress the project and push it through to completion, and ensure that the quality was achieved within that time allocated. So it's all about resource allocation. The budget allowed for the early assembly of design and construction team, enabling all parties to allocate appropriate resources and get involved in the build process and meet those constraints. The PQS had an elemental budget for the construction process, but it put what he felt were realistic figures in there, but this was not based upon detailed design. As mentioned earlier, this scheme was very in people's imaginations at the beginning of the scheme and developed as we moved forward. So the PQS really had to manage his budget and get involved in the design process as we went through that early stage to push and pull a little bit where figures were perhaps moving a bit further than he would have liked to. Yeah, value engineering had to be addressed as the design and the cost was being developed early days. Moving on then. Have we got a slide further on there? I think we haven't moved, have we? There we are. So as mentioned before, the lessons of this project largely were the early engagement of the design and construction teams, enabling the integrated planning across all disciplines, improving the cost estimation, the buildability, and the risk management. Collaboration of parties working throughout the process, pre-construction through to completion, under a one-team ethos, which also created an outstanding sense of ownership and pride in the project, which, as I'm sure you understand, helps no end in driving any project forward. Off-site manufacture of many products had great benefit to us. It reduced the time on site. It minimised the effects of the weather on construction activities. Not forgetting we were working through the winter. We did have a week of snow, which caused us problems. It minimised risks to the construction programme and also helped with producing a high level of quality. Obviously, the other benefit, it was a health and safety boon, reducing risks on that side. So finally, our understanding is that the project exceeded the client's expectation, which is brilliant. Meeting their vision of understated simplicity and complemented the 16th century manor house without actually competing with it. Clients, staff and guests all think that the product is wonderful, and I hope you can see from a couple of the pictures there how magnificent the restaurant is, and it really does provide a beautiful location, and it really does give you a feel of sitting out in the garden itself, as literally as if you are sitting on the outside and eating al fresco as such. So the project was a combined effort by all parties, and from the client, the consultants, through to the contractor, and all elements of the supply chain. And without the collaboration and commitment of all those organisations and people, the project would have really struggled to hit the targets set and not achieve those dates that the client had hoisted upon us. So I'm just going to end this slideshow there, and oh, no, hang on a second. Let's stop sharing. That's the one. And so yeah, that's just a run through of basically what we presented to the awards panel when we went to London for the interview process of the awards. I think, you know, basically the awards process was relatively straightforward, much the same as any other perhaps, but in a fair amount more detail than many awards processes that you get involved with. And in the first instance at least, but once you move beyond that submission of your documentation and run through of the project, you then have the interview process if you are selected and taken forward, of course, into the finalists, which I imagine Ed may well tell us a little bit about. But I think from memory, we went up there with that presentation, and up to London, that is, and three of our key people who are involved in that project, they had that presentation which they were allowed about 10 minutes, so they rattled through it much more practiced than I just did, and rattled that out, and then had about, I think, 10 or 15 minutes of questions thereafter, and that was it, out the door. So I think that's the preparation for both of those, particularly that presentation and the questions that may have been answered there, was quite involved, and perhaps a nerve-wracking 20-25 minutes or what have you in front of the panel. But obviously it was very much well worth the time spent, and actually going for the award, and of course winning it even more so. So with that, I will wrap up and pass back to Craig.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for bringing forward that lovely scheme. I know Sarah's already earmarked a table in the near future at the restaurant. Very much appreciated. Lovely, lovely building. As Simon says, we're going to move on to Ed now, who's going to talk us through the Cabby headquartered development that Scott Brown brought forward with Ridge and others. So Ed, can I pass across to you, please?
Thank you, Craig. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully this will work. Can everyone see that? Is that okay? Is that visible?
Yes, we can see that.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to take you through the Cabby headquarters, and it will take you through the concepts and design and the construction, and cover some of the points that that Simon raised, and we've also faced similar challenges. So let me take you through that. So right. Okay. So first of all, we just look at the building, the brief, and the concept behind it, and then how some of the construction challenges we faced. So the client is an interesting client. The client is a Cabby, and they are the Centre for Agricultural Bioscience. They research into improving people's lives by providing information to solve problems in agriculture and the environment. So it's really about using non-invasive species to cure, to solve problems with other invasive species. So they are also a not-for-profit organisation. So they are basically a run very similar to a charity, and so all of the money that they take in, they want to direct towards solving these problems for 5 million farmers around the world, and to take them and their families, lift them out of poverty. So, you know, a client we were really keen to help. This slide just shows you some of the key locations that they've helped in this quest to solve these problems in agriculture and bioscience. So really interesting organization. So what was the brief? Well, the background was that the Cabby had been were located in old school buildings, and these buildings were built in the 60s, completely inappropriate, acres of corridors, small spaces, and completely absorbing a lot of the money that Cabby were taking to keep it maintained, heated, and livable, really. So the issue was, how do we deliver them a new low impact, world-class HQ at neutral cost? So no money could, they didn't have any money to spend. So the challenges were funding, this fixed and restrictive capex, so we didn't have any more money than we could generate from the site. Attaining planning for this new building, it's a greenbelt site in an area of outstanding natural beauty. Very low cost in use, because I don't want to spend their money on maintaining and running a building, and really make it a wonderful place to work for the staff. So that was our mission. There's the site, the outline in red you can see there, and you can see the old school buildings on the left there, and then you can see the fields that they had, which were the old sports fields for the school buildings. The school closed in the 70s, so, and the buildings really hadn't been hugely maintained since then. So that was the site, and so the challenge was, how do we turn that into a new building for them? So the proposal, so what do we come up with for this? Well, we had a challenge really also because of the work that Cabby were doing on biodiversity. This was also the United Nations Decade of Biodiversity, and this project's taken 10 years to be completed because of the complications of selling the land, forming partnerships, producing the funding, and then getting building. So how do we create a building which celebrates this biodiversity and this decade of biodiversity? Zero carbon, we wanted to get very low carbon, cost in use, so a passive design, very low maintenance, and a beautiful and delightful place to be. So here's our concept. We've got this biodiverse nature of what Cabby do, and the multiple different habitats. We've shifted and raised the form, and then the building kind of tucks underneath this this biodiverse landscape, and then finally the landscape is integrated with the with this form of the building. And so this gives you a little view of the concept and the vision. So flexible floor plans, orientated with you know, solar orientation to make sure that we don't make a building that overheats. There was this idea of this green loggia street running through, kind of you'll see this on the bottom slides, the bottom images there, a building that could be kind of infinitely extended, a bit like a zipper. So it kind of, you can add wings left and right as you go forward. So there's a flexibility to the building. Canteen, kitchen decor, and keeping the height down was very key. We couldn't build tall; we had to keep it to existing height of the surrounding of the existing building. So, and then this landscape integration. So that was our vision for the concept. And there's our image from all that time ago, which showed you the idea of this integrated green roofed landscaped hugging building with photovoltaics and really to represent the image of Cabby. Okay, so sustainability. How do we do this then? We've got to get this building to be sustainable from first principles, and that means a building which doesn't need a lot of energy to run, a building which almost runs itself and doesn't use a lot of cost to maintain itself. So the building's orientated to minimize solar gain. What does that mean? The building is orientated east-west. It's long elevations face north and south. And that means that the south elevation is easy to shade and the north elevation doesn't need any shading. So that means we can get lots of natural light into the building, but we don't overheat. We used horizontal, we had a concept for horizontal PV blades. We used horizontal blades, not PV ones. We put those on the roof in the end, as you can see that those squares on the roof in the middle. And that allows us to harvest energy and to adjust and modify the temperature inside. And then we use planting to minimize the solar gain, as you'll see from the roof in a minute. And then the other side of it then is how do you ventilate and keep this building cool? So we had this strategy we call natural ventilation plus. So the building has got this perforated facade, tall window vents on all elevations to allow fresh air to flow through the building, cross ventilation. And the building form maximizes this cross ventilation opportunities as well. So, but however, when you've got a hot, still summer day, it's going to overheat, isn't it? So hot, still days, air movement is induced by roof fans, which pull the air through, and then cool air can be, and warm air can be introduced into the floors, which drift up. And there we can see on the right a photo of the screens. So these are these inward opening windows that are screened on the outside, allow you to leave the windows open all night and cool the building on a hot day. So it's really a nice way of doing it. It's user controlled. And then just talking about solar overheating, obviously you can see here we worked very carefully with the engineers to ensure that we could design a building which got lots of natural light in the winter and then blocked solar gain in the summer. So warm in the winter, cool in the summer. So there's quite loads of work done on that to make sure that worked properly. And then finally, the green roof. Why is that important? Well, it's more than just a nice, looking feature. It has a low maintenance. It protects the roof below. So the green roof acts as a kind of shield to the sun. So the roof, it increases the lifespan of the roof below. So it increases the, it minimizes the maintenance over time. It adds to a solar shading to that roof, and it gives you an insulating effect. And it also has an evaporative cooling effect. So as the plants aspire and give off water vapor, the building below is kept cool. And also water mitigation. So in the case of runoff and rainstorms, water is kind of stored temporarily on the roof, so it decreases the need for a lot of below ground drainage. The fit out of the building was important as well. So as you can see, here's the kind of plan where we have this office, cafe core office, and you can see how we could continuously extend that into laboratory space, greenhouse spaces, more office spaces. And that green kind of, we call it the internal street, runs through the building, connecting these spaces now and in the future. And here you can see on the left, that is one of the views from our BIM model, showing you what it was going to look like. And then on the right, here's a photo that I took on site as we were building that. So it's quite interesting, I think, to see how the use of BIM allows you to really understand and visualize exactly what you're going to see on site. So it's really important to use that technology, and we found that a real boom for the process of design. And so that street runs through, and we've got the office wings and cores, and there's a certain amount of payback for the local area as well. I think you can see on the left there we've got changing facilities, so that the fields that we've kept could also be used for sports by local residents and people. So those facilities can be opened, the changing rooms can be opened without the whole building being opened. So that gives a payback for the local residents, which was really important that we could talk to the planners about this when getting this building through planning. And there's an image from our BIM model of the street and reception area internally, and there's a photo of the completed building. And a couple of things to note here. You see that we've used concrete. There's an embodied carbon effect with concrete. However, we're using this concrete to act as the thermal store of the building. So the building keeps cool in the summer, but in that cathedral effect, you know, when you go into a cathedral in a hot foreign country, there's a cool sense in it, and that's because of the cool air is stored from overnight in the material, and that's what we're using the concrete for here. And in the winter, the opposite, the warmth is stored in the concrete and keeps the building warm in the winter. So it's it has an environmental benefit. Okay, impact. You know, what we were trying to create was this landmark HQ for Cabby and the community, and it was you know, it delivered ahead of the long stop program date, because the adjacent enabling residential development, that was part of the signed contract, so we had to do that. We had to be delivered to budget, and we actually delivered under budget because there was no more money than was generated from the sale of the land. We did achieve the aspects and aspirations of the brief, and I think you see that first sketch that I put up is then you'll see in the photos that what we built. And I think client feedback up there, you can see that the CEO of Cabby was extremely pleased that they had a building which they could be proud of, which represented their aspirations, but also had been done, you know, achieved in the timescale and under budget. I've just got a few photos to show you. There's the construction process going on. So this mix of steel and concrete, a lot of prefabrication, but a lot of excellent work by the contractor, Barnwood Construction. And really, you know, it was about this collaborative process. Here we see inside. So this during the construction process, very simple internal finishes in the end, but very clean. That's what the building looks like as you approach it. And you can see that internal street running through it, and the offices on the right, and that solar shading I mentioned. And there's the landscape integration, landscape wrapping over the top of the building, integrating, and it was creating these biodiverse habitats. And there we see the building from the sky, and you can see the form of the building wrapping into the landscape and integrating, and really, and the height kept down. All the plant rooms are buried within the depth of the building, so it's a low scale, low rise building with PVs as well on the roof, as you can see there. And so lessons learned. What did we learn when we were doing this? Really hard thing to achieve this on time and budget without it's a complicated building really. So, you know, what we had is a great team ethos and culture, mutual respect. Everyone, there was no sense that anyone was in competition with anyone else. It was very much about building a really good, close working team, and that lasted for 10 years in total. Non-confrontational, problem-solving ethos. I would say that the contractor Barnwood were exceptionally good at working with us and finding solutions, and so we had a very non-confrontational team. We had pretty much a simplicity of the building designs and systems, so there wasn't a lot of M&E in this really. It was quite simple window opening, natural ventilation strategies which helped keep the cost down. And I think finally, I'd say understanding the client was essential. You know, creating a building that they were proud of, that represented them, and really represented their ethos and their drive, which was really really essential. Okay, so that's me finished. Hopefully, I haven't overrun too much. So I'll stop sharing now if I can work out how. Must be easy enough. I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Love that building. So yeah, thank you to all my speakers again. Really appreciate your time today. So if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat, or we can get going. I'd just like to start off, I really enjoyed the range of discussions, but I kept on coming back every time I was writing notes, kept on coming back to that tagline that SecB are using, that recognise the best, inspire the rest, and how important awards are in learning and understanding the lessons. You all finish with lessons learned, and it was really key to show how you take these exemplar buildings and we will learn from that. So I'll kick off some of the questions. Simon, I mean, you touched on it with your presentation. You mentioned offsite manufacturing. The lessons you have learned through this process, do you find that that has informed how you're approaching projects going forward? Are you leaning more towards using offsites to improve those timings? Is that something you could give us an insight to, please? Oh, you just need to say yourself mute.
There we go. So we were involved in this project a lot earlier than we would have than we normally are in our regular projects and what have you. So we got involved very early days, did a lot of work with the design team, and it was very apparent that it was impossible to build this project out unless there was a lot of off-site manufacture. For instance, we did have a poured concrete slab in the basement, but if we'd had to construct the basement walls in block or reinforced concrete or what have you, there would have been curing times and build times that would just be inappropriate for the contract period. So it had to be reinforced concrete panels, precast offsite, and swung in and dropped into place. So there was that. I mean, there's the steel frame. There was a small amount of steel framework to support the roof there, and that all had to be pre-ordered, pre-manufactured. So there's a lot of pre-construction measuring and investigations that had to be undertaken. The glass itself, the steelwork had to be constructed exactly as the drawings, so that we could pre-order the specialist glass and bring that in. There's no chance of waiting until you've got a framework up there to measure from. So there was a vast amount of investigations and trial holes and laser measurements and all this sort of thing that had to be done beforehand, otherwise the program would never have been met. So yeah, it's great offsite work in terms of assisting with the site process and keeping the on-site process a little perhaps safer and quicker. But I think this project was a little bit different to certainly the normal sort of project that we would get involved in.
I suppose rolling on from that, Derek, I'd open the question to yourself. I personally love the idea of the summits going alongside the awards. Have you seen your reach expand because of the different format? You appreciate awards are often, an evening, nice to catch up and drinks, and you get the accolade. But this lessons learned, this knowledge sharing, have you seen that the reach go further?
So the summit hasn't. I mean, it doesn't happen until whenever it's 1st of July. So we've still got a little time to go, and it'd be interesting to see how people respond to it. The awards are always hugely popular. I mean, when it's a dinner, it's kind of like 600 people, and as you say, it's a great bash. But in those events, you don't actually have that much time to kind of share the knowledge and the great stuff that Ed and Simon have just both been extolling and sharing that. So we're hoping that it really will make a difference. But there's only so much you can get in those sessions. I mean, the summit on the 1st of July, it's 10 separate sessions, each 45 minutes, each one focusing on a different theme, and it's about thought leadership. So let's see what people do. Certainly the way the sector has pivoted, and I imagine it's the same in many sectors, but the way we've moved, at times painfully, but certainly in the early days, but I think we very quickly adjusted to being online all the time. It's just how we operate. It'd be interesting to see how productivity figures show for the sector. You know, are we much more productive because we're not traveling around, or actually no more productive because we're not, and I speak personally, not creating enough space between meetings to reflect or plan or breathe. It's just back to back to back. So it'd be interesting to see kind of how that goes. But yeah, no, I hope that it will. And certainly on our other programs where we're delivering training, it provides access to people wherever they are at any time. Whereas a physical event it becomes kind of restrictive, but you do gain things because you got that personal interaction. So I know different bits of CE are operating in different ways, but no, it'll be interesting. And one question I just put on, which was as much for Simon as anyone, and kind of picking up where Ed was saying, is that, you know, the use of virtual, how much was BIM used on that Jacobean house, you know, on the restaurant, so that people could absolutely experience and build it fully digitally first before building physically. You know, and that's kind of, you know, where we absolutely as a sector need to embrace all the aspects that really allow us to fly.
Yeah, so answering your question there, Derek, I don't think there was very much BIM usage, if at all, on this project at all. I'm not sure if there was the budget or the time, but I don't believe that the architect is BIM compliant, and certainly we aren't as a contractor, albeit we could engage people to act on our behalf in that respect. But it's kind of work that we get involved in is, I think, generally below the BIM radar, really.
Okay.
I'll go to probably our last question from Jack Haragos. Ed, do you know how the planning was achieved, given the site was in the green belt and ARB?
I think on the Cabby project, it was key that the building, this curved green roofed soft form building, was seen by the planners as reflective of the surrounding landscape and really that curved form of the hills that you get. And so the planners were very supportive of the building because of its environmental credentials, because of its soft form. We kept the height down, and so that actually the building itself they fully supported, and that allowed for the enabling development of a residential development on the site of the old school building, which they would not have permitted in that location if it hadn't been for the fact that they supported the building so much. So they wanted to see the building built. They wanted an exemplar sustainable building in their locality, and so that enabled the residential development to happen. So it was really a process of working with the council and explaining the building and explaining all the aims and goals of it that won them over. So yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and we'll probably have to pull the session to a close now because I appreciate we are closing on 9:30 time. Firstly, thank you so much to all our speakers today. Really appreciate your time. I appreciate you all for attending today as well. What we'll do is we will place all of the presentations on our website and through social media, so you can find links to that. We will also send links out for the SecB Awards and the summits. Do thoroughly encourage you to get involved with those. I'm going to be booking myself into a couple of those 45-minute slots, hopefully, and yeah, really cover some subjects that are pretty interesting. In regards to the Surrey Club, we've got multiple events looking forward into the year, but what we want to do is encourage members to open up a dialogue with ourselves for future topics they want to hear about. Some of the things we're looking at the moment are embodied carbon and net zero carbon, the National Construction Playbook, social value, but we're also looking to really start opening up and starting to get to see each other face to face. So getting back into other formats of networking, and hopefully you'll be able to join us. So please stay attached to our social media feeds, keep an eye on the website, and again, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it and wish you all the best for the day. Thank you.